Eyebrows guy has bicep mass.
Eyebrows guy is now biceps guy.
Exactly.
He's now no longer the son of Rambo. Yes. He is Rambo.
He is Rambo. Do you realize how big his biceps would have to be for him to become biceps guy? They would have to be crazy Russian injectable biceps big. Like. And we're back. Welcome back, everybody. As always, welcome to another episode of the Crowded Theater Podcast. As always, I am Kyle.
I'm Taylor.
And I am Cliff.
Welcome back. How are you guys doing?
Doing really well today.
Taylor, you look spiffy.
Thank you.
What's going on with you?
I went and had my very first bridal trial error for the hair and makeup today, and I'm really excited about it.
That's right. You were dressed as a unicorn today.
I am a unicorn today.
That's right.
Yes, I'm Unicorn Taylor today.
Yes, you were freshly returned from getting your hair and makeup done as a trial run for the wedding, and it is elaborately braided, and you are adorned like a sparkly unicorn from a Lisa Frank cover right now. Is that how you feel?
I feel very, very pretty. I feel very bridal. Good.
Excellent. Cliff, you are also in bridal makeup.
Exactly. My hair has also been adorned for the bridal party. We're thinking of going with gray and 3 days no shampoo for the hairstyle.
Right. That's right. That's what we're doing. That's right. Well, you look fantastic, Taylor.
Thank you.
And Cliff, you also look fantastic. And I'm glad you decided to leave the 1,000 bobby pins in your hair for this podcast.
Yes, no.
Which Taylor, an hour ago when we were setting up, thought was a good idea. And right as we were starting, she's like, I'm kind of getting a headache right now. So Taylor is bleeding for this podcast right now. So
blood, sweat, and tears, you guys.
That's right. So all of you little people out there must appreciate it. That's right. So yet again, for the second time in 2 weeks, we have a new movie.
Yeah.
That is to say, a movie that is new and not made 20 or 30 years ago to talk about. We are talking about the new comedy horror film, I guess. Yeah, I mean, that's what you would call it, a horror comedy, I guess. Death of a Unicorn, starring Jenny Ortega and Paul Rudd and Eyebrows guy.
Which we should learn
Eyebrows
his name.
guy, we absolutely should, and one day we will. But Eyebrows guy, who totally steals the show.
He's grown from a boy to a man all this time.
Yes, that's right. And
Eyebrows
what is
man.
it? And Taya Leone is also in it, who I remember from my youth. And what do we know Taya Leone from? She was in a bunch of stuff growing up. We'll get to that in a minute. And then
she was in Deep Impact, was she not?
She was in Deep Impact.
She played the news anchor.
That's right.
Didn't quite sound like a news anchor,
yes.
But we still bought it.
She sits on the story for a day so she can get front and center in the press conference with Morgan Freeman and find out all about the end of the world and all that kind of stuff. Have you ever seen Deep Impact, Taylor?
No.
It was one of the 2 asteroid movies that came out along with Armageddon. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about...
It was Armageddon and 2 asteroid movies? Or Armageddon was the other asteroid movie?
No, Armageddon was the other asteroid movie. And then there were also about 50 more that were made right after for like the Sci-Fi Channel.
But the 2 big Hollywood ones, those were my Armageddon and Deep Impact same year. Consensus is Armageddon, the more impressive looking movie. But it is a Michael Bay movie, so pretty much a mess. Whereas Deep Impact... a little more solid as a motion picture, but not so many memorable visuals.
That's right. So anyway, she's in this.
Yep.
Other people are in
Slightly older, but still good at acting.
Yeah, and I can say going into this, really fantastic cast. But we'll get to that in a second. But going into this, we were very excited. You know, it was kind of cool. Last week we had gone into Mickey 17, pretty excited for a new movie, which doesn't happen often anymore, it seems. We see mostly old movies on this podcast. For those of you who don't know, the Crowded Theater Podcast is the only film podcast where every movie is seen in a movie theater. We do not cheat.
I told my makeup artist and hairstylist about our podcast. I told them that they were basically glamming me up for this podcast.
That's funny. That's great. No, that's and as they were. This is, priorities.
Priorities.
Sure, we can use this podcast.
Does it take well on camera?
We'll find out. You can watch an hour of footage later of this this iPhone camera, and so that way you'll know what you'll look like in everyone's iPhone pictures. Anyway, so we were looking forward to Death of a Unicorn. We saw it at the Alamo Drafthouse Village. Last week we recorded a podcast on Raising Arizona that'll come out, which is a nice little breather. We went back to our roots in more ways than one just by recording a podcast about a film that came out before the turn of the millennium. So we were like, ugh, and we shook off all that newness for a minute, and we were like, thank God we won't have to do anything new for a while. But then Death of a Unicorn, which was a fun trailer.
One of the better trailers of this year. I'm a big fan of trailers. I think trailers are a little bit of an unsung art form. You can really do a lot with a trailer. And you can always lose a lot with a trailer. And I thought the trailer was really fun.
Yeah, no, the trailer was good, and so we were excited going into it and all of that. And, whatever kind of mixed feelings we might ultimately have about the movie, there is a lot of good within it. There's a lot to praise within the movie. Mostly, I think, to tee it up here, let's tee it up, everybody. Let's talk about what this
is the plot.
Why were we excited to see Death of a Unicorn? So Death of a Unicorn, movie, kind of a fantasy horror comedy about a businessly father who's a
lawyer. I think he's
works for a big corporation, evil rich people who own a giant plot of land. He has a kind of moody, pimple-faced daughter. We very much get the sense they are getting over, grieving something. There's a whole subtext, or sorry, a whole backstory around grief and this and the fact that they lost their mother. And then as we see that he needs very much Jenny Ortega to be on her best behavior, his daughter, played by Jenny Ortega, because he needs this position, he needs the promotion, he needs the thing, he needs the gig with all of these rich people so that he can make all of the money and that they'll be okay forever, blah, 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 blah. And on his way up there, he's running late. He's trying to talk to Richard E. Grant and these other people on the phone, and then suddenly hits something, runs over a deer, runs into a moose. Nay. They run into a unicorn. And you, of course, all know this because you have seen the trailer, and it pretty much sets most of that up in about 10 seconds in the trailer. And we get it, and there's a unicorn, and then some more stuff plays out with the unicorn at the roadside. They realize they've killed a unicorn. They load it up in the back. They drive it on to the palatial estate of the Richard E. Grant, who plays some rich dying guy. Picture that. It's exactly what it looks like. His rich wife is played by Taylor, who does a really good job playing.
She's great.
She is really fantastic. Again, really great cast. Really awesome to see Richard E. Grant in here as well. Always very fun to see him in anything. He's fantastic. And then they have a son who really steals the show, played by Eyebrows Guy. And Eyebrows Guy, who
you have IDMB up. What is Eyebrows Guy?
His actual name is Will Poulter, which I've known this whole time.
Oh, I have not.
Yes,
so Will Poulter.
Will Poulter. Yes. No.
Write that down.
Will Poulter is. This is the other thing. So
that's way more normal than I thought it was going to be.
No, Will Poulter is really fucking good in this, and is good. And it's weird because it is a movie where we have some heavy hitters. I mean, Paul Rudd, has Marvel levels of charisma normally on screen. And it's not saying he's not bad, but he feels maybe he is, maybe a bit underutilized comedically in this film. Whereas Will Poulter is just stealing scenes left and right. Every moment just feels like it's alchematized into gold by him.
Who is you've told me a few times, this is a different actor, but you've told me a few times that there was an actor that kind of fell off and that he would say, it was like, even if I did, lesser quality movies, my quality would be really good.
Oh, Josh Brolin said that. He said about the many years between Goonies and No Country for Old Men. That he said, even if I was in a bad movie, I made sure the quality of my work was good.
I feel like Will Poulter is not necessarily in a downswing, but I feel like he's one of those actors like him and Robert Pattinson
he's
and Mikey
17. Right now,
Obviously, they're both him and Robert Pattinson are making upswings. But I feel like both of them, no matter what weird movie that they are surrounding themselves in, they themselves, you can't look away. Like,
no,
I think
absolutely,
they do really great.
Yeah. And it's weird. I remember Cliff and I saw Will Poulter for the first time as a child actor in a movie we saw. We wouldn't have seen. I think it was at Fantastic Fest at the Alamo Draft House. You saw it in a festival context. So it was either that or it was South by. But I think it was at the South Lamar actually. And I remember we went and we saw Son of Rambo, which was this British movie, and it was a British coming-of-age movie about one lonely boy and then sort of a ne'er-do-well, kind of what we would in America just sort of call kind of a backwoods or white trash kid, some sort of ne'er-do-well kid who wanted him to go off and basically play combat in the woods, and they disappear into their fantasy land. I don't honestly remember much of the plot, but it's a coming-of-age story where you disappear into their fantasy land of being action heroes. and like firing guns and doing stuff as they pretend to be Rambo out in the woods. I don't remember much more about it than that, to be honest, except for the fact that when you watch the movie, part of what makes the movie so good is that ne'er-do-well kid is this kid with this really strange face and these really pointy eyebrows, which is Will Poulter. I mean, very prepubescent, very high voice, just, a little kid version. And he steals the show in that movie. You come out of that movie, and you can't really, and he has such a good face that you can't really see him. Once you've seen him once and you've seen him in that movie, doesn't matter how old or young he gets. And he did age well in a very Nicholas Hoult kind of a way. Like, he was a good-looking version of him as a kid, but they still look like the same guy because of his crazy eyebrows. But I
think the first time I saw him was We Are the Millers, or We're the
Oh,
Millers.
that's right. Yeah. I don't think I've seen that movie.
That'll be a really fun couch movie. That's a fun comedy. It's a good one.
Yeah. No, that would be a good one to see.
Very memed out.
He's the son of somebody in that. Who's
Jason
Sudeikis or something?
Yeah, that's where I think it's him, Jennifer Aniston, and then Emma Roberts is like the sister, quote unquote.
Gotcha.
It's like where they're like some criminal. They're not at all related to each other at all by blood, but they're like all
pretending to be a family,
pretending to like smuggle drugs and all getting a cut. And blah blah blah. Yeah,
no,
very
it's
fun.
A lot of fun. No, that is fun. No, he is very good in this. He plays their smarmy, shitty son who, is into Bitcoin and stock trading and his he needs some big fund.
Diverse portfolio of entrepreneurial interests.
Yes, exactly. I'm so glad you remembered that. Exactly, his diverse portfolio of entrepreneurial endeavors or investments.
Yeah, just a bunch of nonsense.
Yeah, just a bunch of nonsense. He's wearing shorts the whole time in every context. He
loves that hot tub, which
really
honestly I get.
Tub.
I can relate to that.
I love when they're all about to go on the hunt later on for the unicorns, and he's thinking, I think somebody needs to hang back, plan, so what? I'll go hit the tub.
Yeah.
And anyway, he is fantastic in the whole thing, and every moment in the movie where he is on screen, he succeeds.
There's
really well.
I can't even quite remember the dialogue of it all, but it was like one of the final moments with he and his mom. He was planning, he was about to do another drugs, and she goes, "Are you high?" And like mid ramble, he goes, "Yes, I'm high," and then keeps going. Like his quippiness and he had really fun timing. You could tell he was having a lot of fun on that set.
He seems to have that other level where he is a fantastic dramatic. I mean, there's a lot of great people in this movie who can also play comedy as well, but there was even among this fantastic cast, he definitely was the one. And to the film's credit, he's right there until the end. It would have been a tremendous loss to the film if he had gone out early. But spoiler alert. He meets a grisly end, but it's not until the very, very, very end of the movie. So we have him, driving things along, and they expand his character by having, or some of his silliness and his potential by having him snort a bunch of unicorn horn.
Ground up unicorn horn,
which allows him to go from totally useless to at least to playing a consequential role in the third act of the movie, which is good. That is all fun. So fantastic cast. They all go back. So to continue with the plot for just a moment, just to sort of get us into the meat of the movie, they take the unicorn back. You've all seen the trailer. They all start to discover that the unicorn's blood and horns and all of these other things
cures acne, cures allergies, cures his need for glasses, and then the big businessman is obviously dying.
And he is dying, and they very quickly leap to the conclusion that they should try and use the unicorn blood to cure cancer, and we're okay with that because we know that's where it's going anyway. So they inject him with it. It cures his cancer right away. Hooray. They realize the thing is super.
He has his Charlie Chocolate Factory grandpa moment where he
drops the cane. Yeah. He has a good moment, and then, of course, they begin to realize that in a conceit oft-repeated in monster movies, that, of course, the unicorn isn't a unicorn, but it's just a baby unicorn, because, in fact, there are bigger, meaner unicorns that are on their way to get them.
With velociraptor claws on their feet.
With velociraptor claws on their feet, yes. They are velociraptors in more ways than one in this movie.
And, spoiler alert, they turn blacker the more angry they get, and when they were happy again, they became white unicorns.
Yes, yeah, I actually like that. I like that part.
I thought that was a little silly, but we can talk about that more near the end.
But we can get to that when we get to the end. Yeah, but so big scary unicorns start to show up and eat people, scientist guy, other folks, And everyone then sets about, in the second act of the movie, figuring out how to appease these unicorns, how to survive, but it is complicated by, of course, the fact that the baby unicorn, and it is assumed that that is, of course, the bait, the bait that these large unicorns are coming after, just like Mickey 17. We all jump to the same conclusion, is extremely preposterously valuable, etc., 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 because of all of these properties. In fact, we take time to have an auction scene where they're selling off, for presumably blood and whatever for vast sums of money.
And they do make it explicit that they cannot replicate the compound that is so magical.
Yes, they definitely take a whole scene to tell us that that apparently this is the only, they cannot replicate these compounds, blah blah blah, for science reasons.
So it'll only be for the super rich.
Exactly, and they're going to sell it off to a few super rich friends. So again, we begin to see the sin of greed materializing, and of course, to avenge this sin of greed comes these evil unicorns who then start to munch on folks. And in the background of all of this, there is Jenny Ortega slowly putting the pieces together, quite literally, as she begins to research a tapestry of a unicorn that is peripherally related to her mother, because she went there just before she died, and a sort of cosmic synchronicity, thereby prints out a bunch of these tapestries, puts them together, and pieces together a mythology, including a fun gag with the reveal of the unseen part of the tapestry, wherein we see lots of these medieval tapestries of unicorns revealing a hidden portion where they're ripping people's guts out, and lots of fun stuff. And that is a cool gag. And all of that, yeah. I don't know, there's just so much fun. There's a lot of fun stuff. Oh, so just to finish that idea out, we then follow Jenny Ortega as she begins to theorize that, of course, they just want their baby back and various other things to try and appease the unicorn. She, of course, from the beginning of the film, is concerned for the safety of the unicorn, and we know this because she knows the names offhand of several animal charities or organizations they can take it to, which is a better thing to be doing with the unicorn, I guess, than exploring any of its mystical potentialities, but we'll get to that in a minute. But anyway, unicorn. Death of a Unicorn. Her father is Paul Rudd. It's a fun movie. I was excited to see it. I was really excited. I actually like a lot of the choices also that it makes in terms of its ambition to do something spiritual or cathartic with the or transcendent, I should say, with the
very high
unicorn.
ambitions.
Yeah, that very high ambition, right from the get-go in the opening scene with the unicorn. Jenny Ortega takes hold of its glowing horn and is transported to the oh-so-in vogue psychedelic dimension present in the films of the Daniels and lots of other YouTube videos these days, and she jumps into that for a few seconds and pops back out, and then later on she textually informs us that she felt the presence of her mother or something within that, and that pays off at the end in the images of the unicorns being sort of magically transmuted by her being an innocent maiden, etc., into big white unicorns that run along with them cathartically at the end of the movie. Or
still trying to kill them or release them from the cops. We can't really tell.
There is something going on there. Yeah, it's funny, and I think this would be an interesting point on which to turn around and talk about. Maybe some of the things in the movie that don't work as well is the fact that the images are there at the end of the movie. It's that I feel like I should be really liking and really responding to emotionally. But everything feels so sort of blank and confused about what, by the time we get there, that I have a very muted response to everything that's happening.
The cinema is there, but the actual things going on aren't quite smart enough or appropriate enough or thought out well enough to justify.
You can feel, and so to get into some of the specifics around that and what we mean is that there's a tremendous potential in this concept, not only for a really fun, cool movie about a horror movie with unicorns and all of that, but there's this fun potential. I mean, there's some great stuff they set up. The mother who has passed away and all of that, we can kind of see by contrast to all of these materialists who just want to cut the unicorn up and take it and all of their blood and all of this other stuff. It'd be pretty easy to picture, it seems like it would be, what is the spiritual journey that's going to bring Jenny Ortega back into a loving harmony with her father, played by Paul Rudd? What is going to heal the wound of this missing mother? And I think, just to kind of not beat around the bush too much, I feel like the film wants there to be something of great spiritual import that connects the unicorns to the mother, but it doesn't quite know what that is or how to integrate that with the action that's going on in the movie. And so, while all the materialists, all of the rich people, are fighting over, the bits and pieces and blood and science of the unicorn over the course of the movie, Jenny Ortega really isn't learning anything about her mother or coming to understand anything or untangling any kind of spiritual riddle. That is to say, she touches the unicorn's horn and she hears a song and she doesn't know where it's from, and she remembers later on in the flashback it's the song her mother sang to her, and she sings that to the unicorn to appease it at the end. No, instead, the film seems utterly quagmired in just this inching forward banal literalism where she's literally just investigating like it's an episode of CSI, but watching YouTube videos about the history of unicorns, then getting a large format printer, then printing out the tapestries, then putting all of the This is like 5 scenes I'm describing as she just inches forward towards this inevitable conclusion, as opposed to just, we see that she sees the tapestries. We get that great gag with the reveal at some point of the things being gutted. Sure, have all that in there, but I feel like that connective thread where we're going to actually begin to understand what she didn't understand about her mother, and what Paul Rudd maybe didn't understand, and that maybe in the mother's death and in the mother's absence, she's going to uncover this secret. It's going to heal the wounds between them. And that has something to do with the unicorns. I mean, the dummiest version would be she touches the unicorn horn at the beginning and she sees something other than a psychedelic screensaver. She sees a psychedelic screensaver and then maybe an ambiguous flashback that she doesn't initially know has to do with her mother or whatever. But it feels like the ideas have not properly been brought down and concretized and dramatized, I should say. They have not been properly dramatized. And so what you get left with at the end of the day... Oh, sorry, did you have something you want to say?
I was going to say, I feel like the most they even try to is the fact that she sees the whole tapestry journey starts because she's like scrolling, for no reason, just scrolling through photos of her mom, and then she sees behind her mom a tapestry of the unicorn, and that's what makes her think, like, oh...
Yeah,
you know,
and again, it's not that that's not set up
making
textually.
That excuse,
no,
but
for sure.
Like that's all they do.
Exactly,
that's the only thing they try to do.
And I guess that's the point I'm trying to make, is that they're telling you right from the get-go, and that it's past that these unicorns have something to do with her journey healing about her mother. It's going to bring her and Paul Rudd back together. Except they never actually draw that connection. They just literally have to tell you. She has to tell Paul Rudd textually later on, I felt mom earlier. And it's like, okay, well, we could have done something with that. And she has to, again, later on, anyway, so she, again, find a photograph with the mother, which, again, I like the idea of it being a magical synchronicity. The photograph with the mother and the unicorn in the background, they went there just before she died. I get it on a level of logic. It's not illogical. But the mere fact that all of her scenes involve internet research and piecing together printed documents for half the movie means that maybe there could have been more that was set up so that by the time we make it to that unicorn at the end, we understand that the unicorn is her mother or whatever the fuck, or that she sings the song her mother sang to her to pacify the unicorns, instead of just them literally, these big CGI golems walking up to her and then just flopping down because of her innocence, because she's an animal rights activist. I'm not exactly sure. Why is she an innocent maiden?
Because the tapestry that she did the research on said if she was an innocent maiden, then they'd flop down or something.
Yes, exactly. Why is she an innocent maiden? Just by virtue of the fact that she's a teenager? Again, it's not a logic problem. It's an issue of she learns nothing about her mother or her father at all that then are actually transmute her into actually being this maiden that pacifies. It's not even done in a lazy symbolic way, a copy and paste way. It's weird, I heard this song when I touched the unicorn, and then later on she sings the song. I know I'm harping on that idea, but it's because it's the first cut and paste version I can think of. It's the connection is purely textual, so the question then becomes, what does the middle of the movie consist of? And
it consists of her doing a bunch of research and trying to go talk to the family 3 or 4 times, and they still won't listen to her.
Yes, who refuse to advance the plot in that way for her. But the problem is the whole movie, and this is a larger problem that unfortunately affects all the other characters, doesn't seem to quite know what to do with the emotional journey of any of these characters, and so instead seems really, 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 really quagmired at the level of literalism and the actual mechanical actions of what need to happen in the story. So instead we get scenes of people discussing things like gates and locks and the science of this, even though the science is clearly all goofy and made up, and people telling you how they feel, and it's just inching forward at a snail's pace to the point where in a movie that should be accelerating past its midpoint into a fun, crazy journey, and you see several cinematic homages to Shaun of the Dead within the film, and you also see the presence of Jessica Hines, formerly Jessica Stevenson, the star of Spaced, the show. So you see that the film wants to be that transcendent Shaun of the Dead like a horror comedy. The problem is every character in Shaun of the Dead is emotionally, intimately related to Shaun in a way that as they die off and as they say the words to Shaun they were never able to say before, and as the various deaths push this all of these relationships to a breaking point, every single relationship is loaded with emotions, but that we understand and that we see are all reflections of Shaun's journey to grow up, to leave behind his working at a store, whatever it is, DJ past, and finally become a husband and a father, and all of these necessary steps that he's quagmired in and can't move forward. I've used quagmire twice now in two different contexts. Keep track of them, Taylor.
All the quags.
All the quags. So anyway, we...
Which, by the way, would be an easy fix for Death of a Unicorn. Yeah. Don't have it where Paul Rudd and Jenny Ortega are the lawyer and daughter of the bad guy family, but where they're members of the family, maybe slightly estranged, interacting with people they actually have some dramatic threads with before they are all taken out one by one by the Velociraptor unicorns.
Yeah, and that's the problem, is that we keep saying they're Velociraptors because is that this isn't just a script problem. This comes all the way out into the cinema of the movie, because at the end of the day, the unicorns are just velociraptors. They're just big, kind of silly-looking CGI creatures who you see in full light, in full wide shots, walking around, killing people, eating people, doing stuff, because they don't seem to represent or meaningfully interact with the character stories in any other way than let me put it this way. The velociraptors in Jurassic Park are far more meaningful in how they integrate with the character story, as is the T-Rex and everything else, than these literally mythical creatures who could represent any abstraction, no matter how contrived, of a way it could relate back to the mother. We could learn that their entire way that they're defeated is through, mother's milk. The whole way that she appeases them is through song. It could be you could literally make up anything. And yet in Jurassic Park, where it's literally ostensibly about DNA and cloning dinosaurs, we realize that these velociraptors are the demonic personification of the fact that Sam Neill didn't like kids. He doesn't like reproduction. He literally threatens with a raptor claw. I mean, we could have done this, couldn't we? In the unicorn scene where she touches the horn, takes a raptor claw, puts it between his own claws, and slashes at the belly of a kid for asking a question, and then talks about how much he hates kids, and then he's forced, through the story, to be put into a car with two kids, and then save these kids, and go on a whole journey with these kids, and then end up in a tree protecting the kids, and meets this giant maternal Bronchiosaurus, which they call a she, and hugs them tightly, and all of this, so that by the time at the end the velociraptors are coming after the kids, that's the demonic Sam Neill who didn't want to have kids, who's eating them and all of that. Again, it's very difficult to compare this movie to Jurassic Park because the whole subtext is it's a really good script. But the point is, the cut and paste version doesn't even seem attempted in this. It's like it essentially exists as two utterly siloed bookends at either end of the film. And so in the middle, the winds that are supposed to push us through emotionally, all the action and all the meaning of the middle parts of the movie are just about people getting into different rooms, and as a result, they end up copying and pasting in a lot of things from other movies just to nudge the action along, like oxygen tanks being blown up and homages to other movies.
And just full dialogue that does not feel like dialogue, which is philosophy statements to each other.
Yeah, what do you mean when you say that?
Well, I mean, like...
Well, I kind of know what you mean, but I want to hear it.
This is a good example, like a good version of this. But like, for example, they were having like the Paul Rudd and the daughter were having a conversation about whether this unicorn blood was good or not, and they were saying that this could have, one would you want mom to have had this medicine? They wouldn't have let her near this medicine. Like, that's a good version of like having philosophy. Yeah. But there was also, and I can't think of an exact example, but there was a few times where specifically Jenny Ortega's character, I felt like her dialogue was just like anthems for different I can't even think of the right verbiage, which is like clickbait titles of things that say.
And what I will say is that this film, the other thing that I think signifies why it has problems dramatizing all of its ideas in the middle is the literalism does bleed through to the dialogue, where instead of these people being arch weird caricatures of rich people, they absolutely are that, but then when it's time to fill their mouth with arch caricature words, they're talking about working with NGOs and talking about pharmaceutical companies, and it's like we're in that uncanny valley where we're a little bit too close to reality at certain points, and things are literalized a bit too much. Like, make him a bigger cartoon. I mean, again, the cartoonish aspects are there. It's a unicorn movie, but I need to understand in simpler terms the relationship between him and Eyebrows Guy. Eyebrows Guy being underserved. I need to understand. I mean, the person who I think gets the least well served is Paul Rudd, who I don't just basically buy. Paul Rudd is so fucking...
He's Jerry from Rick and Morty.
Yes, exactly. He basically is Jerry from Rick and Morty, but he is so charming in every movie. Since Clueless back in the day, if Paul Rudd's there, he's your favorite character. And at the end of this movie, spoiler alert, I guess, there's a scene where they do a false death where he is stabbed by a character and dies, and we are utterly ambivalent to the drama between Paul Rudd and Jenny Ortega. They've had a couple perfunctory scenes where they've talked about not understanding each other, but in the interim, she's just done a research paper about unicorns. She's come to understand nothing about her mother, nor have we. He's come to understand nothing about his ex-wife, nor have they, and we don't understand how it has anything other than a slight synchronistic relationship to anything that has gone on. And I'm not saying that we have to literalize it to the extent that the unicorn is the mother in a literal sense. What I mean is that what is the relationship? So when the unicorns finally show up at the end of the movie, and she's an innocent maiden, I guess, for some reason, they flop down at her feet, and the only reason this works is because Will Poulter has snorted so much of the unicorn horn that he now knows what they want and is in possession of a fact that supersedes the fact that Jenny Ortega had done at the end of her research. So at the end of Jenny Ortega's research, she didn't come into possession of some transcendent knowledge about her mother. She came into possession of the fact that they maybe wanted their babies back or something. And at the end of all of Will Poulter's snorting of unicorn horn, he doesn't come to some transcendent understanding. He just comes into possession of the fact that if he sits Jenny Ortega down and hides behind her, the unicorns will flop when they get to her.
And fall asleep, because he tied him up. So it must have been like
yes,
a
flop,
whole...
I guess. But that's the thing, is like, cool, but because they're mythological, drawing the lines between meaning and what that could possibly be and how Jenny Ortega in that moment could simultaneously charm the unicorns like Mia Sara in Legend, and we realize that it is because of her innocence, but it's the same innocence, or it's because she finally forgives Paul Rudd for blaming him for the mother's death, that she attains the innocence that allows her to...
That's a good one.
Yeah,
that's a good
whatever
one right there.
Secretly blaming each other, or whatever the thing is. And the problem is, it is just not a properly dramatized concept. It is a concept that exists in this siloed way, and as a result, you spend, and this is sadly the main affect of it, is that it is just boring. in a movie that is like, I'm kind of into it in the beginning, though there were some red flags early on, which we can touch on. But sorry, go ahead.
The just very jarring realization that Paul Rudd beats this unicorn to death. A little spoiler.
That was definitely the biggest red flag right away, was how the opening scene of the movie is far better handled in the trailer than it is in the movie. Because unfortunately, it's not even the beating the unicorn to death thing just feels odd and tasteless in a kind of James Gunn sort of Lloyd Kaufman-esque way. But the real first red flag is when, unlike the trailer, they walk up on the unicorn and we have that great shot of just a little bit of the unicorn and them, and then it just turns the camera around on an edit. It just flips it around, it edits, and there we're just looking tail to nose at a CGI unicorn laying on the ground. They completely literalize the unicorn instantly. And so they do it in every single other scene. So that little bit of of mystical ambiguity and delight that the trailer inspires, where you see all of these different fun actors all staring down and letting you know just through their faces and through their dialogue and through lines that they're staring at a unicorn, and your mind boggles. And then they could hold off on that image and maintain that tension the whole movie.
Yeah.
And then, because it's a horror movie, when the big unicorns show up, we also don't show them very much. And we keep it hidden in bags and in medical tents, and we see its silhouette, and then eventually whatever. But instead, all of that tension, all of that intrigue, all of that is spoiled in the first 45 seconds of the movie. And then so by the time she touches the unicorn horn and she goes to the psychedelic journey, I'm like, okay, all right, that could go somewhere interesting. And then he's beating the unicorn to death, and then it cuts to the title. There were already just some indications that we were not in good hands. And I think, for what it's worth, it's a horror comedy is a hard thing to pull off, especially with the wonky script. And the guy who directed it, whatever his name is, I think this is his first feature. So, it is what it is. But once you get past all of the series of conversations that sort of over-explain why Paul Rudd needs a promotion, and all of that kind of stuff, and we kind of over-explain that they are, in fact, evil rich people and all of that. And by the way, could have tied into the fact that the nature preserve in some way was meant to hide the unicorns, and maybe it's some reason. I don't know. I'm just throwing any layers that could have been peeled back. Yeah, because
that nature preserve was donated by that guy. That was like a throwaway line, but apparently,
I remember every cinematic calorie that is put towards Jenny Ortega's entire through line for a large portion of the movie is to arrive at I have found Google images that unicorns eat guts. And they want their baby back, probably, and are dangerous. Again, that's it. That's the whole thing. She learns nothing about her mother. She in the fantasies, when she touches the unicorn multiple times, you can even just first, dummy version, Taylor, off the top of your head, I'm not going to ask you to do this, don't worry, but I'm saying you could come up with a better thread to connect her first unicorn touch fantasy, her second unicorn touch fantasy, and then what she ultimately has to see transcendently at the end, and then take possession of about her mother so that she could tame these wild beasts. And the fact that it's not there at all indicates that the filmmakers involved don't know that it's supposed to be there at all.
I even almost wonder if this really was just a first draft, or if there were even potentially scenes that were once filmed and then rearranged. Because, for example,
it doesn't have that feel. Sorry, go ahead. Do your thing.
The one thing that makes me think that, or the one thing that gives me questionable hope, is there's like near the fourth time Jenny's like, listen to me, please, my tapestries. But he's like, but Dad, don't you remember? Mom took us to the museum that one time, and then there's a unicorn tapestry, and he almost looks embarrassed, almost like an acting direction, almost looks embarrassed, almost doesn't make her head. She's like, no, I don't know what museum that is. It almost feels as if there is a reason to. Maybe I'm hope projecting, but it almost feels like there's something there that maybe there's a reason he just wouldn't be like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Moving on, but he just seemed a little too embarrassed.
What are you talking about?
There's a scene near the third or fourth time where they're she's really trying to get Paul Rudd to be on her side. And she's really please listen to me, Dad. Tell him it's about Mom. We went to go see these tapestries are from Mom's museum. And anyway, maybe he was just making acting choices that make me feel like there was a scene missing. Or not.
I mean, that's the thing is that Paul Rudd was trying so hard, and it feels like you have to give Paul Rudd so little in a movie to work with for him to build a whole character around. So the fact that by the time you make it to the end of the movie and you can Jenny Ortega's father in this movie about their dying mother, where there's mythological unicorns, we feel pretty ambivalent about his death, is a bad place to end up. And to touch on what I was saying before, the main affect of all of this is that in the middle, in the second act, it just gets very boring.
Yeah.
Because nothing feels like it's moving forward. The characters, in a very literal bound way, are moving from place to place, and again, I think the film believes its raison d'etre is a sort of class satire, and so at each one of these stages, while they're just moving from room to room and deciding who should open the gate and all these other things, there's little lines that are throwing more and more service at the class satire aspects of the film, but the problem is we got most of that really quickly early on. We have to now take these characters who we see as broad caricatures early on and begin to peel back layers. Even if they're evil layers, they have to turn and change and whatever over the course of the film. Things have to feel like they're moving forward, and yet by the time the third, like after Asian scientist has been killed, and then all of a sudden Indian girl scientist is just, is she a character in the movie now? She just wanders in and joins them. Yeah, she does kind of just
walk up to the front,
crosses her arms, and is like, he had a name. His name was Dr. Asian Scientist. And I was like, was that a character I was supposed to invest in?
And then also
he was a fucking caricature. So
no. And then the same thing too when she's having her moment with Paul. That's like, I mean, we do everything that we put the most important thing first, and they have the whole family career thing, and then all of a sudden she just fucking dies, and it's like she dies pretty. It honestly. I'd like to think, almost Jurassic World-wise, that one really crazy Jurassic World death, it was because the actress requested a crazy death. That crazy... Whatever.
No, you're right.
Indian... The forgive me, I don't know her name, but the Indian doctors who died, her was like just crazy random character, got a crazy random death. I almost want to be like, I hope she asked for that. I hope that was like because the director was like, here, we'll give her a great death.
No, it feels like I think on a level they felt like the film maybe, was slowing down at that point and they needed a spectacular death, but they needed all those other characters to be around for other moments, and so they had to have a couple scientists there to die in loud ways. I don't know. Yeah. And so you get to kind of the end of the second act, you realize that things aren't going anywhere, and after the third or fourth scene that's meant to set up Jenny Ortega's printer, you're sort of waiting for the movie to get to a final... Go ahead.
Another thing. The Chet and other security guard lady character, I kept waiting for them to turn and be like secret agent, because they just were just very military for no reason. And
I just want to say that to talk about the rest of the great cast, people who are criminally underused, they have Anthony Carrigan in the movie, who's the bald guy, who's from the show Barry. He's an amazing performer, who again... was a character who I think I've seen the first couple seasons of Barry, who is I think a character who was only supposed to be in a couple episodes, but they wrote him through the whole show because he's so charismatic and so funny.
He's fun.
And he also, kind of like Eyebrows Guy, actually manages to make some of his moments actually fucking work, because he has that thing. He can just make it work.
I have a family. You do?
Yeah. And Jessica Stevenson, is also great, playing a kind of straighter role for her until she kind of just gets eaten randomly in the woods by someone at the end. So you have this powerful cast of funny people who are all arrayed, ready to deliver the material, and yet the material just has them like discussing the lengths of rooms and how to get the unicorn at the end. It doesn't have anything to do with them in the middle. I kept hoping
somehow, up until the very end, that it was going to turn into these two people are like watching this family, like, and then they somehow knew about they just felt too militarized to be servants, and they seem to be. I don't know. I just was hoping there was something more there.
I think probably also what you're picking up on is real, which is the fact that it's like this film probably does not need an actor as good as Anthony Carrigan playing that role, especially when he's so criminally underutilized. So you have this guy that every time you cut to him, he's playing such an intense subtext on his face. You're like, this guy's up to something. This guy's up to something. He's going to factor into it later. Except he's not. He's just
does not.
Anthony Carrigan is like, I know that Ari Aster Messner is producing this, and Paul Rudd's in it, and Jenny Ortega's in it. But what the fuck am I doing on this set? I was a fucking second lead on Barry. I can do shit, and he's just sort of left to slowly dry out in the sun in this movie. Yeah. Anyway, so it is disappointing. It is a disappointing thing because we were really looking forward, I think, to this being hopefully a good one. The trailer was good.
Yeah, and I particularly was optimistic about this one.
Yeah, the filmmaking in the trailer seems to have a better understanding of how to handle the unicorn issue than the filmmaking in the movie, and that is not a good sign.
But I will, just as a quick pause in that, while Kyle and I walked out of the movie with a little bit immediate and lesser thoughts, Cliff actually had a pretty optimistic or enjoyable.
I generally enjoyed my experience, more or less, beginning to end. It definitely felt it dragging a little bit in the middle, but yeah, despite all these things being kind of dumb and not quite working or making sense, it definitely has the feel of a real movie. It has has all those beats and can be a good, entertaining journey for some, no doubt.
Yeah.
Was there any scene or concept in particular that jumped out? Thank you. That struck your interest or stuck out to you as you were walking out?
It's like a favorite scene type thing.
Yeah.
Let's see. I just kind of enjoyed getting to know all these fun, silly characters. Kind of when they first arrived at the house and got to meet all the, basically all the great actors playing all their silly characters and all that. That was a super fun time. It's like, okay, I could hang out if we're gonna hang out with this group for this 90 minutes. This could be a good time.
Yeah. And I will say, as much as the concept feels and everything about it feels totally underbaked, I can't say I can't recommend seeing it because we will be let down in that way with the rest of the movie. But Will Poulter alone,
really does enjoy it.
Yeah, he alone is worth the price of admission. And every other person in the movie, whether it's Richard E. Grant or Taylor Leone or Jenny Ortega, has at least one or two good moments in the movie. And it will be the kind of thing that you'll get on board enough with it so that when it doesn't quite come together, it will be a little bit disappointing. But it might be worth seeing just for Will Poulter's moments, which are great beginning to end. So, Death of a Unicorn, everybody.
Yeah, honestly.
Not much more to say. Sorry, go ahead about.
No, I was gonna say there's a couple. Without spoiling lines, I want to talk about a couple of lines, but frankly, they're just lines you can go watch, and then you'll know the lines I want to talk about if you see the movie and whatnot.
Oh yeah, well, what were you going to talk about?
There was one particular line that I just enjoyed as a kind of a quippy, fun line of the dying grandfather character, which was like, there's tribesmen that hunt lions with spears. It's a rite of passage. It's a magical way of showing the strength of the human condition. And then he goes, oh, so you've hunted lions? He goes, yes, with my AK-47 machine gun. Or just like, I'm like, that's funny. Like, you got me. No, there are some good lines. There are some good, things.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff through it. And it seems that the film's first interest is in the idea of it being a kind of class satire.
For sure.
But it's like and utilizing the idea of people eating unicorns, drinking their blood, and wanting to sell them off is a fun idea. But it has sort of emotionally rung that bell as hard as it can by about 15 minutes into what is an hour-long middle act that unfortunately, if it's not fully a real horror movie and we're not actually scared of seeing these people get eaten, then again, it's why a movie like Shaun of the Dead, a great horror comedy, needs all of that character stuff. Because if you're not fully a horror movie and we're not really scared of the unicorns and we've seen them just dancing around so there's no more mystery left, then we need some emotional journey to take us through. And the facts that Jenny Ortega learns apparently is not enough. But Death of a Unicorn was not the only movie we saw this weekend.
I was going to say, do we want to even bring up?
Let's bring it up. The last 15 minutes or so here, we actually went to go see a movie that I feel like perennially is playing at indie theaters everywhere. That is to say, in Austin, I feel like every 6 months or so, you have the opportunity to see Fantastic Planet, the French animated film from, God, what year did Fantastic Planet? I'm going to cheat, right? 73, there we go. Same year as Texas Chainsaw. We saw Fantastic Planet, directed by whatever his name is, Rene Laloux, cheating again. Because this is a film that we had told Taylor about a while back, that we had seen, plays a lot, has a cool, groovy 70s score. They used to play it a lot at the Alamo Draft House back in the day. They still play it pretty frequently at various draft houses, but we saw it at the Austin Film Society Theater where it was playing, I'm sure as part of some 4K restoration or God knows what.
Yeah.
But Taylor, this was your first time seeing Fantastic Planet.
Yeah.
What did you think of this movie?
I have a sweet spot for anything that's animated, so obviously that was already in my go house, and I really, really enjoyed it. I thought that a lot of the visuals were really interesting. I feel like that's kind of what I've stayed thinking about the most is just the art style and like the images that of the aliens or of the alien planet itself, and the. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, so to kind of tee it up for those who don't know, Fantastic Planet is a science fiction animated film from 1973, a French film, sort of an arty science fiction film about a world where humans are basically mice or rats, living among giant blue humanoid creatures with big fin ears and red eyes who seem
super Anunnaki.
Yes, exactly, super Anunnaki, and who are
or Avatar people.
Yes. But yeah, they were 100 feet tall. And that these, I forget what the names of the people are, but they are like super psychedelic and trippy and spend all day in meditation where their bodies literally liquefy and they travel around in spiritual form and blah, 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 and are so superior to humans that they basically view humans as rats. In fact, in a great sequence, the opening sequence of the movie, you see a mother running from, terrified, cradling her baby from giant monsters that seem to batter her this way and that and throw things at her, but you cannot see them. The mother is eventually picked up and dropped to her death. We see that the baby is on its own, watches her mother die, and then we pull back to reveal that it is just 3 children, three giant blue children, each of them, 100 feet tall, who are like, oh, she's not moving anymore. And so then another little girl comes up, takes the infant Om, as all of the, which is funny in a movie about meditation. They use Om to be what all of the children are, or what all the humans are, and takes him as a pet, and he becomes a domesticated little frou-frou pet human for her and stuff. And watching this, and so it's a fun movie. It's based on I believe a French novel. So said the opening credits. I don't know too much about that, but it tells a good story and is very trippy in terms of its portrayal of the world. This is 1973, so we were coming out of the psychedelic era. And to just add a side note, Cliff and I were very familiar with a lot of its psychedelic history. For its psychedelic imagery, I'm sure, because of Ren and Stimpy and the episode Marooned, where Ren and Stimpy in the 90s ended up on a strange planet, and many of the backdrops of bizarre gargantuan crab creatures with eyeballs sticking out of them and crazy plants that whip and weird sound effects, all rendered in that sort of Monty Python Gilliam-esque moving things around on a page sort of style. It's all these backdrops appear in the Ren and Stimpy episode Marooned, and so we were quite familiar with them when we were kids, and we thought they were weird, freaky Ren and Stimpy backdrops, but had no idea that we were seeing an homage to animation history and some frou-frou French cartoon that we would see many years later. So we saw Fantastic Planet. Cliff and I had seen it in theaters before. It's definitely the way to see the movie. It is full of crazy, weird ideas about the world, like crystals that grow and can be shattered with whistling, all sorts of ideas that would have been great in a unicorn movie. Come on, Death of a Unicorn. Look at to speak of a film that is well integrated dramatically, but also is just full of fucking ideas, It's like, there's no one who's like, but we don't have the right code for the airlock. How are we going to activate the gate? That never happens once in Fantastic Planet. Again, it's a bit more abstract of a movie, but it is chock full of crazy, weird science fiction ideas, including the fact that the giant blue aliens are constantly tripping balls and meditating and liquefying their bodies and traveling into the cosmos, which surprisingly actually factors into the plot later on in the movie.
Surprise, surprise.
So Taylor, what did you dig? What do you remember about Fantastic Planet?
First and foremost, I just really enjoyed the animation style. Again, I'm kind of an animation nut, and so I think that was just really cool to watch. Shout out to their running animation. That just was really cool and satisfying to watch. But otherwise, plot-wise, I thought it was just a really cool plot. I liked the conversation of wild ohms versus domesticated ohms. I thought it was interesting that you see this like government conversation about doing cleansings of wild ohms to keep the population down, and as they become problems, regulating domesticated ohms. People can't just get rid of them. And
the guy goes through the full arc of he leaves his place having grown up as a domesticated ohm. He meets the savage avatar girl, just like an avatar, who teaches him the ways of the wild ohm, but he brings the knowledge, the concepts by way of
that immediately becomes
tiara.
Permanent part of your part of your knowledge, and blah blah blah.
Yeah, the ohms teach each other stuff by wearing these little tiaras that download all of the information. So he drags this tiara, which is to him the size of a Volkswagen, all the way into the woods, and then all the ohms stand and they begin to suck up knowledge. So now they have their own culture. There's people in the ohm culture in the wild who are not into this knowledge, and he has to fight them, Dune style.
Get rid of the Dawn knowledge or the drawback knowledge or whatever they're called.
Yeah, so they have he has a Dune fight with the traditionalist who opposes his new messianic role in the ohms, and except instead of knives for the Dune fight, Cliff, what do they use instead of knives?
Oh yeah,
they use these horrible screeching bird worm things that are strapped to their chest with their hands tied behind their back, so they have to run at each other and have these bird things bite at the other person.
Yes.
One of the most bizarre arena fights that's ever been put on film.
Those bird things really pulled some short straws, I'll tell you what.
Yes. Well, they seemed very angry, so... so a lot of crazy ideas like that as he works his way up in the culture. And of course, the Blue Giants have their own politics, and despite being all trippy and cool, the more conservative elements among them want to gas all of the ohms, like pests, and so they gas them, and the boy tries to warn people and bring the blah, 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 blah. They save all the ohms. The ohms go to use the knowledge to build rocket ships very quickly, which is impressive.
No, there's I think it was many years.
It did imply
it was multiple years.
Yes,
but it also was explaining that 1 week on that planet is many years for a human. It's because the big aliens live multiple lifespans of humans, which is why we were so pest-like.
Yeah,
there was some good concepts.
No, there's some
there
great
too.
stuff. What's cool is that we find out that their planet is orbited by a moon or the Savage Planet, which is, I think, this Planet Sauvage, which is the real name instead of Fantastic Planet. But I think the movie's pretty fantastic. So they get up there where they find the film is just chock full of crazy ideas. And it's amazing that how abstract this is, and yet it just works because it visually makes sense. They make it to the planet, and the whole planet is covered in giants, just like the other planet, but no, just giant statues, male and female, all paired, holding each other in dance poses, but all are headless. Just a giant sea of ground, moonlight, covered in many, many, many of these towering, dancing couples that are headless. And come to find out, the secret of the big blue people is that when, as a necessary part of their survival, for reasons that it doesn't bother explaining and we don't ask questions because it's just cool, they liquefy in their meditations, and they astrally project and float up and pair off in orbs,
become the heads of them.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry, go ahead.
No, just become the heads of these statues and essentially dance mate, and that's how they keep all of these different species going together.
Yeah, so they become the heads of the statues start dancing, and so once they arrive at the planet, they just start smashing the statues, thereby smashing the mind mating rituals of the blue people below. So the blue people below decide to integrate the ohms into their thought waves, and now they've provided them with a whole new way of thinking.
And I think they even says they make them an artificial planet and just put them all on all right, here, you fuckers, get your own planet.
And they all merge and into trippy wisdom and all sorts of other stuff. And it's pretty cool. And again, it's a good example of the fact that there just seems to be something about all of that is cool enough, and the ideas are interesting enough going on, and the story it tells is interesting enough that it is very minimal on actual story and what it explains, and it moves very, very quickly and is mostly about trippy ideas and long sequences where, we're watching crystals grow like frost on things that can then be shattered with whistling. So we just are in these long silent sections watching all this stuff play out. and yet it feels like it's taken you on this whole novel-like journey of all this same stuff at the same time. It just works without much additional explanation. Even the crazy, weird orb heads at the end, it all somehow makes sense. We're like, yeah, that's exactly what I bet they were doing with their fucking trippy meditations. Weird dance sex up on this planet. And we accept it. And we are into it. And the music is good, too, in that movie.
Oh, yeah. In fact, I first encountered this movie hearing the soundtrack playing at a coffee shop I was at, and I asked the barista what this was, and told me it was the Fantastic Planet soundtrack.
Nice.
And after that, it was sometime after that we saw the movie for the first time. I forget exactly when or where, but probably at a screening somewhere in the Austin area.
No doubt. Very cool. Very, very cool. I want to say maybe even they had Fantastic Planet posters or murals or something at one of the old Alamos. I can't really remember. I remember seeing those big bluefin guys around a lot. Anyway, so I think we have talked Fantastic Planet to death. I think
It's a short film.
Yeah.
Shorter,
absolutely. Oh, yeah, no, I think we can. I just wanted to touch on that because it's a cool movie-going experience. You should go. You should smoke a joint. You should trip out. You should melt your body with meditation.
They play it at AFS pretty frequently. It's definitely worth checking out.
Absolutely. They play it, and if there's an indie theater in your city, they probably are going to play it eventually, too. And if not, check it out at home, I guess, if you have to, but try and see it in a crowded theater if you can. There's only one more thing to ask, and I think I already know the answer to this, Cliff, before I ask it, but in Death of a Unicorn, who was the most jacked person?
I mean, I guess the only candidate would have to be Eyebrows Guy.
Exactly.
Who was fully grown into a man with arms just big enough that if they're cut in half by a black T-shirt, they look big.
No, Cliff, I think he has more mass than you think. I think you're not giving him enough credit because I think he still has Marvel mass on him. Because if you recall,
he played a Marvel hero. For a second.
He was in the last Guardians of the Galaxy. He played what's his dick?
Was he?
Adam.
Adam. You're right. He was Golden Boy. Yeah.
Who I think was being teed up in the previous film to probably be the villain of the next film and then relegated to a very small role. I'm not sure why in that film. And he was, again, one of the best parts about Guardians of the Galaxy 3. But I saw him in interviews around that, and he was looking very jacked. He clearly had that Marvel sauce that they gave that Marvel sauce that they gave Chris.
The super soldier serum they give all the Marvel guys.
That's right. He has taken some of that serum, so he probably has shrunken slightly. But I noticed that bicep mass, and I think that was real mass. That's not all T-shirt.
All right.
Oh yeah. Cool. Well, you can take that to the bank. Eyebrows Guy has bicep mass. Deal with
Eyebrows
it,
Guy is now Biceps Guy.
Exactly.
He's now no longer the son of Rambo. Yes. He is Rambo.
He is Rambo. Do you realize how big his biceps would have to be for him to become Biceps Guy? They would have to be crazy Russian injectable biceps big. Like, he's
only has biceps and nothing else.
Yes,
yeah.
He was
because his face has eyebrows and nothing else.
Yeah. Anyway. All right. Well, I think we've talked these things to death here today. Taylor, thank you for dressing up for the podcast.
You're welcome. Anything, you guys. Please leave your comments about how great these braids look.
There you go. They'll be making an encore appearance at our wedding.
Probably in a couple of weeks. Yeah. Well, one more trial, guys. We'll see this one more time.
All right. Cool. Anyway, so I guess until next week, everybody, I am Kyle.
I am still Taylor.
And I am Cliff.
And we will see y'all in a
crowded theater.
Bye, everybody.